Hello there, and welcome back to the booth here at the World Magic Cup. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, joined by Luis Scott Vargas, and we are excited and honored to bring you coverage of the last round of pool play here. This is going to determine who makes it in the top 8 and who is going to have to go back home pack into their country with a story rather than a top 8 under their belt. They've got Macedonia and Australia, both at 1-1 in their pod, meaning they need that one crucial victory, and we're going to find out who that is right now. Hello and welcome to coverage of the World Magic Cup. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. We're in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and it has all come down to this. For top 8 hopes for these teams here, Luis, we've got Macedonia. You take a look at Neboisa Stemenkov playing Dredge. He's going to be up against Gary Lau. This is the Australian team on the other side of the table. He's on blue-red Kiln Fiend, and it's real simple here, Luis. The winner of this round is going to make it to our top 8, and the loser will not. It is that cut and dried, and there will not be a tie here. We're going to see one of these teams advance and one of these teams go home. And the way it works, of course, is that we've got team play here. So there's 3 different players playing against 3 players from the other side, and the team that wins 2 of those matches wins the round and puts their team into the top 8. Now, this first matchup here, Luis, is Blue-Red Kiln Fiend for Australia in the hands of Gary Lau, Dredge for Neboisa Stemenkov. Matchup?
Well, they're both decks that are very linear. They're just trying to do a very focused thing and do it as quickly as possible. The Blue-Red Kiln Fiend deck is trying to play a Kiln Fiend, Thing in the Ice, or Monastery Swiftspear, and then string a bunch of spells together, which will flip Thing in the Ice, make Swiftspear or Kiln Fiend gigantic, and you can finish off with Team or Battle Rage, leading to some very quick kills. Dredge, on the other hand, is going to go ahead and utilize the mechanic after which it's named. It's got Faithless Looting and Cathartic Reunion, and Insolent Neonate to discard cards like Stinkweed Imp and Golgari Grave Troll, which then let you dredge them. You flip a bunch of Bloodghasts, Prized Amalgams, and Narcomoebas into your graveyard, at which point they all start coming back into play.
Dredge is one of the more interesting decks to me in Modern as well, just because it's new relative to Modern. It's been around for a little while now, but we saw Golgari Grave Troll come off of the ban list. It was on actually since the inception of Modern. In fact, I think you and I got to play the only Modern tournament where it was legal.
That is true. We played the first Modern tournament, as far as I know, the Community Cup in 2011.
Right, and then but when Modern became a more official format for high-level Magic, it was already on the banned list. It took a little while for people to find the right configuration, but it feels like Kaladesh has actually pushed it into the upper tiers, and we've seen a lot of Dredge here at the World Magic Cup this weekend.
Yeah, the combination of Prized Amalgam and Cathartic Reunion over the last couple sets have really pushed Dredge into Tier 1.
Faithless Looting, a key piece of the puzzle here as well for the Dredge player. Nothing yet for the Blue-Red Kiln Fiend deck, just Serum Visions on turn 1 from Gary. He's going to need to find some pressure, and he hasn't found any yet. You can see there's Thing in the Ice.
Discard.
So playing a Thing in the Ice on turn 2 will threaten to flip it on turn 3, depending on if Gary has something like a Gitaxian Probe or Mutagenic Growth, or even Manamorphose. Any of the 0-mana spells. Yeah. Conflagrate from Neboisa does mean that he potentially could deal with it before it gets out of hand.
Yeah, I do see a Manamorphose in hand for Gary Lau. But he did have a little bit of a curveball thrown at him here. Now he's got a Monastery Swiftspear for the turn.
Yeah, and that opens the possibility of going Swiftspear, Serum Visions, attack you for 2, and then try to set up, if you find something like Team or Battle Rage, maybe being able to have a big turn the turn after with Swiftspear. Right now, Gary, if he played Swiftspear, next turn he could play Manamorphose, Lightning Bolt, and that would make Swiftspear already a 3. Team Battle would make it a 4, double to 8. That's already 11 plus the 2 from this turn. So not quite there, but getting close, and he gets to see a couple extra cards in the process. the coaches looking in on this match. Both teams have their fourth player who can help any of the matches they want, but they're both on this match.
Yeah, in this case, that's Ivo Neskovic, who, by the way, was playing in the previous two, but he's in coach duty here.
And he was playing Dredge specifically, so it makes sense that he would be coaching the Dredge player.
Yeah, Naboisa maybe not as experienced with it as Ivo, so combined, you should be able to find the lines. And yeah, so you mentioned this is one of the options that Gary had, and he is going to, in fact, go for it, get in for a couple of damage here and try to set up for next turn.
Well, there's the Team Battle Rage. I mean, that's what he was looking for.
This Kiln Fiend deck is capable of absolutely explosive turns. Yesterday, we were covering a match, and on turn 2, it did 19. It's like, what?
Yeah, if you draw enough mutagenic growths, you really can just go off.
Now, this is one of the key interactions that you were describing when you were giving us the overview of the deck when we first came into this match, Luis. This is Golgari Grave Troll dredging away 6 cards for Naboisa.
Picking up a Narcomoeba in the process.
Now, the real 1-2 punch, though, is the Narcomoeba and the prized amalgams, right? They kind of work well together, though I don't think he had any prized amalgams in the graveyard there.
And Naboisa also doesn't have a second land. He had Cathartic Reunion in hand, but didn't have the option to play it.
Another card that's really unlocked the potential of these dredge decks in Modern is that rather innocuous-looking creature that he's got on the battlefield that Naboisa does there. That Insolent Neonate, of all things, was a key piece of the puzzle.
It's just an additional 1-mana way to dredge and then discard, or discard and then dredge. And because it is, in fact, ordered in that way, you discard a card as part of the cost. You get to discard your Golgari Grave Troll and dredge. The most ridiculous draws involve Neonate. When you go turn 1 Neonate, sack it, discard a Grave Troll, dredge, and you hit like Narcomoeba 2 prized amalgams. You just have 7 power and toughness and play on turn 1. It's
turn
just like
1.
All right, so if Gary plays Manamorphose here and finds mutagenic growth, I think that might be very close to being enough. Because Team Battle Rage...
Enough to kill him?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So Naboisa's already at 15. Lightning Bolt drops Naboisa to 12. Makes Monastery Whisper a 2-3. Manamorphose makes it a 3-4. Team Battle Rage makes it a 4-5. So that's not quite enough because that's an additional 8, and there's 2 blockers there. So given that Gary was multiple spells short, he took a much safer line here.
Okay, he's going to go for the Thing in the Ice. Let's take a look at what Naboisa is working with in hand. Well, he drew a Narcomoeba. He's got another Insolent Neonate, a pair of Stinkweed Imps, a Golgari Grave Troll that he had dredged before, and then a Life from the Loam. Yeah, it doesn't look great for him.
No, and not having the second land to be able to play Reunion or Flashback Conflagrate means that Naboisa is not necessarily going to be able to stop this Thing in the Ice, and that plus the Swift Spear plus the potentially Team Battle Rage could deal plenty of damage.
Okay, but he's going to use that trick here. This is probably on Gary Lau's second main phase, I would assume.
Yeah, I would assume as well, because if you hit Prized Amalgam, you want it to trigger and come back at the end of the turn.
Fortunately, he keeps missing on amalgams, but he does hit Narcomoebas. He's generating at least a little bit of value. I mean, those are free, but not super impressive.
This is not the matchup where 1/1 flyers really stop your opponent, because Gary is either going to bounce them with Thing in the Ice or use some sort of Team or Battle Rage turn where they end up being, large and trampling.
Little speed bumps.
Apostle's Blessing is a kind of key card in Gary's hand right now, because one of the reasons he was able to make that play with confidence is even if Naboisa plays an untapped red source, which he drew a Copperline Gorge, and flashes back Conflagrate, Apostle's Blessing can stop that from killing anything. I think this deck plays the most Phyrexian mana spells. Probe, Mutagenic Growth, and Apostle's Blessing.
It is a lot. Any gut shots in there?
No, I'm looking for the gut shots, maybe a sideboard Dismember, but no such luck.
All right. Our other matchups, by the way, in the feature match areas, the players are playing pretty deliberately here. Is Bant Eldrazi for Australia with David Mines playing against Martin Nanik, he's on Obzon. Miro Popov, that's the captain, the national champion from Macedonia, is on Infect against James Wilkes, who's playing Dredge on the other side of the table up there. Okay, there's that Conflagrate. Thanks to that second red mana source, Nabois is actually just going to discard his entire hand here. And he's even going to play around Mutagenic Growth, it looks like.
Yeah, he's just starting the thing nice for 6, but that Apostle's Blessing is huge right there. 1 minute, your opponent discards 6 cards.
11 plays 50.
Well, he did take 2.
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty brutal, though. Now, to be fair, the Dredge deck doesn't really mind having most of those cards in the graveyard anyway.
No, but this sets up Gary to go Metamorphose, take a counter off, Bolt, you take a counter off, Teamer Battle Rage, target my now Awoken Horror, attack for 14, 3 from the Bolt. And that should wrap things up in favor of the blue-red Kilnfiend deck in this game 1.
It really should. Gary Lau has taken a patient line here, recognizing that it wasn't quite time to go for it yet, but now Nabois Stemenkov can only sit here and watch. So here we go. Manamorphose. Luis, you describe this sequence, and does that resolve? Sure. Draw a card. He's even got plenty to spare here. I didn't hear what colors he made, but one of them was red. Lightning Bolt, drop you to 12. Thing in the ice starting to get a little crunchy here. And there it is. Target this. Yes, the Monastery Swiftspear will get returned to hand. So will the Narcomoebas. But Teamer Battle Rage on this massive 7/8 Awoken Horror is plenty enough to get the job done. And Gary Lau is going to take down game 1 for Team Australia. I can also tell you that we had another match update while that was going. James Wilkes from Australia won his game 1 with Dredge from Miro Popov on Infect. So 2 to the good for Team Australia here in the last round before we cut to the top 8. We'll be back right after these messages.
Kaladesh is now available on Magic Duels. Build endless deck combinations with more than 1,000 unique cards. Play through hours of story with 50 campaign missions. Play Magic Duels free today on Xbox One, Steam, iPad, and iPhone.
Got an over-the-top standard deck that's ready to bust the format wide open? Sleeve up and throw down at Standard Showdown tournaments for a chance to win sweet prizes. 4 weeks only every Saturday from November 26th through December 17th. Lock in your game at magic.wizards.com/Standard Showdown.
And welcome back to the feature match here at the World Magic Cup. We're in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and I can tell you, Australia fans at home have a lot to be happy about here. They need to win this round to make it into the top 8, and they have won all 3 game 1s. And that is a massive advantage going forward here. We're going to jump over and take a look at Obzon versus Bant Eldrazi. Is that what we have here, Luis?
We were going to, but it looks like we switched tables because they just finished. So it looks like we've got Dredge against Infect.
Thank you. So this is James Wilkes versus Miro Popov. Game number 2. Wilkes is up a game. And I don't know, what do you think about the matchup here? We've got Infect, sort of the staple, versus Dredge. Not a lot of interaction going on here, though. I have seen Conflagrate do good work against the Infect deck.
Conflagrate's a very important card here, as is Dark Blast. So both of those are going to be key cards from the Dredge side of the table.
Wow.
How many Narcomoebas you flip also makes a pretty big difference.
Yeah, it kind of does a Lingering Souls impersonation sometimes, which is very good against Infect.
So
this is a little risky here for Miro Popov, though. He's kept a no-lander, we're told.
Yeah, it looks like a 6-card no-lander with double Gitaxian Probe, and we're not going to see a land on turn 1.
Oh, no. Miro Popov has to pass the turn back with no land.
Not like this.
Not like this. He gambled and came up short. Now James Wilkes has to just pounce on this slow start, and Miro Popov is really at the mercy of the top of his deck. You see his coach, Ivo Neskovic, coming over, and you're not going to be happy when you see this one, Ivo.
You kept what?
Look at him. He's like, really, dude? You know we're playing for top 8.
That doesn't... So, to be fair to Miro, getting a scry and then 2 probe draws in an otherwise solid hand is definitely a reason to keep, especially when you have Grafdigger's Cage, which is a potent hate card against Dredge.
Okay, and you know what? He did find a land now. So we could definitely have a game on our hands. Grafdigger's Cage does pretty good work, right? I mean, it shuts down most aspects of this Dredge deck.
So, yeah, the interactions that it stops Bloodghasts, Narcomoebas, and Prized Amalgams from coming back. It stops Conflagrate from being flashed back. It actually does stop Ancient Grudge from being flashed back, but James, in a bit of foresight, kept it in his hand instead of discarding it, and so he could hardcast it.
Yeah,
and actually, what we saw right there is he played a land, Bloodghast triggered, and then in response to the trigger, he would grudge the cage to get back the Bloodghast.
Deckmore Salvage there for James Wilkes. You can see the Prized Amalgam in the graveyard there. Miro, like you said, he did get to see 3 cards with the Scry plus the 2 draws, and that did get him not quite there on turn 1, but the next turn.
Yeah, and Grafdigger's Cage is a really important card. When you're playing as Dredge, having Graveyard hit in your opening hand is huge.
Okay, here's Faithless Looting now.
A somewhat slow start for Dredge, but against an opponent who's just not casting spells, it's going to be, more than adequate.
Players are going to start, we're probably holding a match or 2 here, so you're going to see teammates coming in to help and help guide the ship. These players know how utterly critical every game is. Again, the loser of this round is out of the tournament, and the winner is into the top 8 and is going to play tomorrow. So the stakes don't get any bigger than this at the World Magic Cup, and now we've actually got all of both teams sitting around this match. Yeah, we're making sure to bring you as much Magic as possible, and that means that the other 2 are paused. Is that a Pendlehaven there for Miro?
It is. So he has green. He doesn't have blue mana.
Okay.
And playing the Spellskite there is just... It's a sign that Miro does not have a lot of options because there's an Ancient Grudge in the graveyard, which can just be flashed back to kill Spellskite. That was a big Dredge for James.
What did he hit?
He hit Narcomoeba, which will then get those 2 Prized Amalgams back. That combined with Ancient Grudge for Spellskite, a potential, cast another Faithless Looting out of hand. Like, Dredge is just firing on all cylinders here. It's doing what it's designed to do.
Right.
And the Infect deck is... it's got a substandard draw that was really propped up on the strength of Grafdigger's Cage, but the fact that it got grudged is really big.
Now, interestingly, I do look at Miro's hand, and he's got a pair of Glistener Elves in hand, decided not to cast them. Or one of those last turn. What was the thinking there?
Without something like Distortion Strike, which he does have in hand but can't cast due to lack of blue mana, Glistener Elf is just never getting in. There are too many blockers out of the Dredge deck.
Already an Archimedes, but more to come.
And also, Miro could have been worried about Dark Blast or Conflagrate, which it turns out that James did have access to. He dredged a Dark Blast, so it wasn't that turn, but he would have had one soon.
Yeah, kind of interesting here. He actually had 2 copies of Distortion Strike in hand, Luis, though no blue mana to actually be able to cast them.
So drain you and look at your hands.
And we're going to see Collective Brutality now from James Wilkes. That is his graveyard on the top, by the way. He just lines them up like that.
Yeah. One of the most interesting things about every Dredge player is they all handle the graveyard mechanics differently.
They do. I think my favorite was one that you and I noticed earlier today, Valentin Mackel.
Yeah, he did a really good job.
Yeah, he had cards that kind of didn't matter once they were in the graveyard in one group, and then he had his flashback spells and his dredge cards in 2 different groups, and that just made it easy for us to see kind of what he was working with. And easy for him, too.
21.
Okay, so Collective Brutality,
Looting.
Faithless Looting, Dredge the Grave Troll that he discarded to the Brutality.
Let's draw.
Miro Popoff is probably thinking in his head, the Brutality indeed. This has gone very poorly for him.
Don't really see a way out of this for Miro at this point. James is just going to have too much pressure, and between Ancient Grudge and Dark Blast, actually a decent amount of interaction as well.
Three. Plug last trigger. It's in the play.
Okay, he's going to play a Gemstone Mine, which gets him back a Bloodghast, but we're going to see these amalgams here, right?
Yeah, once James goes to his end of turn, the amalgams will be making an appearance.
And while he's at it, he's got a hasted Bloodghast now, right?
Yeah,
Alpha's at 10?
he does. It does have haste, but the first Bloodghast already got in for 2 damage.
I see. So that all happened second main phase, so no attack there. But he's threatening a heck of a lot of damage here. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 with Miro Popoff at just 10. He may be in chump block mode here, and it's hard to imagine him coming back to actually win the game from that point.
Yeah, Miro can go to 9 by fetching and play 2 things. One of them gets Dark Blasted, or he can just play one thing, going to 9, and then leave Pendelhaven up. Either way, it's not quite lethal. It looks like it might be like a point or 2 short, but that's with Miro just chump blocking and getting to a point where you're just dead the turn after.
Right, and with the Infect deck really needing to mount some sort of an attack at some point, it just feels so difficult for the Macedonian player Miro Popoff to get things together. Again, he's the captain for the team. But if he loses this game, that would be Australia picking up that critical first match here in the round.
Looks like James is the captain now, actually. He's got a lot going on here.
Yeah, fair enough.
And this is just a case of, and I've actually seen this play out multiple times over the course of the weekend, where you have these hate cards like Leyline of the Void or Grafdigger's Cage that are so effective against Dredge, and you sometimes mulligan or keep hands that would otherwise not be keepable in order to try to beat Dredge with these hate cards. Dredge kills the hate card, and all of a sudden you don't have a functional hand.
Right.
Kevin Jones from the U.S. mulliganed to 3 cards: Leyline of the Void, Delver of Secrets, and an Island, which is actually a pretty awesome 3.
Yeah.
And still lost because he had nothing else besides the Leyline.
Right. Yeah, his opponent just started casting Bloodghast and Prize Amalgams.
Yeah.
Not the power level that you would expect for Modern, but when your opponent has no resources to work with, they can get the job done.
Dredge.
Okay, dredge back this Dark Blast. This card's also just a complete nightmare for the Infect players, on top of all the other problems that Miro has. James Wilkes playing quickly.
Any kills.
You can get the sense that he knows a win is near.
You have a Dark Blast
And you can get a look at the rest of Team Australia all huddled around him. On the far left, that's David Mines. He's the team captain for Australia. And this is the forced chump block by Miro Popov. This is going to put him to 1. And I'll tell you what, Infect does not do a good job of coming back from when behind.
No, that is not one of the strengths of the deck. I think I do really think Infect is the current best deck in Modern. Not by a lot, but I think it is. Coming back from behind, not its strength.
Not at all. And Miro Popov has to extend the hand. James Wilkes takes the first match for Team Australia, and they are 1 match away. In fact, any game win from this point on, Luis, has Australia advancing to the top 8. David Mines and Gary Lau both up a game. We're going to go back to Martin Nanik versus David Mines. It's Bantel Drazi versus Obzon in the middle table. Table B. There's David. Again, he's the captain for Team Australia. Okay. Elves of Deep Shadow kicks things off for Martin. He's playing Obzon. You don't see that in all the builds.
No, and the main reason for Elves of Deep Shadow, because I think that this is not the only team to come to this conclusion, is that Infect needs Noble Hierarch. So if you want to play a mana accelerant in your Obzon deck, you have to make a different choice.
Okay. That is a cool part about Modern, is that you tend to think of the cards as the only option. There's usually reasonable backup options, and that comes up in Unified quite often. When you're just playing for yourself, you just want the best possible choice, of course. So the Obzon player's got a Smuggler's Copter here too. This is a spicy one.
Oh yeah, this is like a Obzon deck that's a throwback to the best of Standard. We've got Smuggler's Copter and Siege Rhino fighting side by side.
I like it.
It's a very aggressive version. 3 copies of Manafens are the foremost in the deck. And alongside those Copters, Siege Rhinos, and Tarmogoyfs, I think that Martin's used this total amount of pressure to very successfully against decks that maybe think Obzon's a little slower than his version is.
Another land off the top for David. And he's got the turn 2 Eldrazi Sky Spawner.
Yeah, Eldrazi Temple, the reason this deck exists, and the deck wins a lot more when it draws Eldrazi Temple in its opening hand than when it doesn't.
Yeah, it's a passable mid-range deck without it, but it's explosive with it.
Oh, the deck's eminently fair when it doesn't have Eldrazi Temple, and it feels completely unfair if it draws 1 or 2 would be the optimal.
One to me.
Looks like Martin's got a Fulminator Mage to maybe slow things down. This is kind of cute. He's going to use it to crew the Copter and then sacrifice it to take out the Temple. I like that. This is cool.
You haven't
Here
seen that
comes the
interaction before?
Copter.
It's a really common one.
Yeah, no, this is the first time I've seen that. You've seen that a lot, Luis?
Oh yeah, the classic Fulminator crew and Copter interaction. It's a mainstay of Modern.
Modern staple. He's resolving his loot effect.
Fulminator Mage looks reckless enough. I would not get into any vehicle piloted by a Fulminator Mage.
Well, Fulminator Mage did not last long as a pilot.
So Martin had to commit to tapping mana for that Fulminator before knowing what he was going to draw. And as it turns out, he left Razor Verge Thicket untapped and drew a Thoughtseize off of the Smuggler's Copter, you can't cast it. But because he killed the Eldrazi Temple, Reality Smasher is not coming down this turn. It would have otherwise with the Scion. So it didn't end up being a huge drawback, but it certainly could have.
David's going to chip in there for 3, knocking Martin down to 15. He's got a land drop to play. He's going to sacrifice this Scion and give himself an Eldrazi Displacer. But wow, that Fulminator Mage really putting a big speed bump in the plants. And geez, Martin does get to use that mana after all, Luis. He's got a Path to Exile here.
Yeah, that's going to combine pretty well with the Thoughtseize and that is why he left Razor Verge Thicket untapped.
Because he knew he had the path? Okay.
I mean, you would have rather cast Thoughtseize that turn if you knew you were drawing Thoughtseize most likely, but the tiebreaker being, well, what's the card I actually have in hand? But because Path will ramp David to Reality Smasher, it becomes crucial that Martin actually has the Thoughtseize and he's going to be able to cast it next turn. Smuggler's Copter looking pretty good this game.
It really is. It's combining with the mana creatures in kind of a cool way. It gives them something to do after you've powered out stuff.
You see a sideboarded Blessed Alliance. That's a card that's getting a lot of play these days.
It really is. Flexible, good way to deal with Infect.
The number of times I've seen Noble Hierarch attacking alongside Blighted Agent this tournament is actually like 5. Like
Five times?
It's happened a lot because that plays around Blessed Alliance.
Okay, here's that Thoughtseize now for Martin. Fighting for Team Macedonia. He needs to pick up a game win here. If he doesn't, it's over for this run from Macedonia. Yeah, this hand does not look very exciting here, does it? Path to
I think it
Exile,
may have just been a
Reality
feature of this
Smasher?
weekend, but I feel like every time I've watched Bant Eldrazi play a game, they always have like 4 lands and playing 4 lands in their hand.
They do play a lot of mana. You know, one of the ways that they mitigate not finding the Eldrazi Temple is by playing mana creatures,
Yeah.
you know, to try to power out these cards early. And sometimes, you know, when you've got Birds of Paradise plus lands and they take away your threat, you get a little flooded.
Yeah, the deck is prone to flood. It also sometimes casts Ancient Stirrings for like an Eldrazi Temple because early that's just what you're looking for, but then just means that you just have another land in your deck essentially.
All right, so what are you going to take here, Martin? You've got 2 choices.
Reality Smasher certainly is the biggest threat. It's unfortunate that Path deals with Smuggler's Copter, and currently Martin has no other ways to attack. But because Blessed Alliance would have just taken out Eldrazi Sky Spawner, Martin figures he's not racing the Reality Smash with the Copter. Hopefully the Copter can find him another piece of offense, and at that point then he doesn't care if it gets Path too much.
Maybe he can find a threat with the Copter. He doesn't here. He finds himself another land of Dryad Arbor.
I actually
I
really
guess that
like
is a threat.
I really like the Dryad Arbor in this deck. So the
Wait
reason
a second. It crews the Copter, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
the reason that there's Dryad Arbor is so that all of your green fetch lands, like Verdant Catacombs and Windswept Heath, now crew Copter. This Abzan deck is built, I think it's built in a very neat way.
That is cool. It's always annoying when you can't tap your Dryad Arbor for mana the turn you play it, but now somehow the tree just jumps right in the old Smuggler's Copter and flies over. I love it. All right, back over to Team Australia. They're all huddled together, helping out their captain, David. David continually chipping away.
And Blessed Alliance may actually get some value here. I guess you could untap Smuggler's Copter to try to block, but you know the opponent has Path, so if David then paths the Smuggler's Copter, that's a disaster. Casting it to make David sacrifice Eldrazi Sky Spawner, certainly reasonable, but not crucial here.
He decided not to.
Uh-oh.
Was that a Siege Rhino?
It's a Siege Rhino. It's
I've
been a
not
while.
seen that card in a while.
That shadow hasn't loomed over this land in many years, but Siege Rhino's gonna make an impact here.
Look at this Siege Rhino for Martin.
I'd like to assume that those were flashes of lightning accompanying the incoming storm.
Rather than our photographer, Craig Gibson.
Well, I suppose the actual explanation works as well.
Okay, well, David finally found a suitable target here and the mana to cast his Path to Exile. He's going to get that Smuggler's Copter right out of there.
Yeah, before it can even attack and trigger the draw discard. So this is going to be a game where both players are nearly out of resources. Martin is up a Siege Runner. That is not insignificant. But if David's able to top deck something like a Reality Smasher or even a Thought-Knot Seer and maybe set up a double block, the board could be stabilized again. Martin ahead on life total, ahead on board. David gets the first draw step. We've got a close game here.
Also, Deep Shadow getting into the red zone for the second time this game as well. Unfortunately for David, just another land off the top. He's flooding pretty hard.
I feel like I predicted this somehow.
You did. You certainly mentioned the possibility. David deciding which land he wants to play. It's going to be a brush land, and he's just going to pass the turn back to Martin. Now, Martin wants to just hang on to this board position for another turn or two. He finds a land himself. That's not going to get the job done.
And when your opponent's leaving back Eldrazi Sky Spawn to trade with one of your 1/1s that tap for mana, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
So this attack's going to drop David to 3. He's got one draw step here.
That's it. And he needs to find himself a Path to Exile or Reality Smasher or something to interact with the Rhino.
It's funny that Eldrazi Displacer, not the draw he would want here, because if he displaces the Rhino, he does just die to the trigger.
Right. Okay, David, what do you got? Nothing. Another land. And that's going to do it for game 2. Martin Nanik takes that game from Team Australia, and they get to live to fight another match here. They're going to be going to a game 3. Again, if you're just joining us here, we've got Australia versus Macedonia. This is James Wilkes having beaten Miro Popov already, which means that since that game that we just watched is going to 3, it leaves us with Table C, which is Neboisis Demenkov playing against Gary Lau. As we join this, Gary is the one who's up a game for Team Australia, and if he can win this game, he will put Australia into the top 8 of the World Magic Cup.
Oh, wow.
What are you seeing here, Luis?
Gary has 2 Ravenous Traps in his opening hand. So,
whoa.
Premier Dredge Hate and 2 copies of it. And one of the advantages of Ravenous Trap is that, so you can play it for 0 if 3 or more cards have hit their graveyard. They don't see it coming. It's Dredge Hate that lives in your hand. And, this Dredge deck, this current modern one, is very different from other ones that we've seen in the past that utilize Cabal Therapy, which those Dredge decks get to see your hand. They get to see the Ravenous Trap or force you to use it. This Dredge deck has really no such luck, and that means that these Ravenous Traps are going to hit at an inopportune time.
Yeah, you can see that the Ravenous Trap is an instant as well, so Gary Lau is going to be able to time that correctly. Now, the interesting balance that you see, though, we talked about this before with the Grafdigger's Cage, is with 2 Ravenous Trap in Gary Lau's hand, he still has to find a way to apply pressure to Neboisa's life total, or else, he can sit there and play the Ravenous Trap game all he wants and just give Neboisa too much time. So that's what I'm going to be keeping my eye on, is can Gary find that balance of a way to meaningfully pressure Neboisa's life total while also keeping Ravenous Trap available. Now, already we're here. He could fire it off before the Narcomoeba actually enters the battlefield, right?
And one of the advantages to doing that is that it stops Narcomoeba and then it stops Bloodghast. And with the second Ravenous Trap in hand, you don't really want them to get a board presence. So I like using this one aggressively, knowing you have the second trap for full backup.
There we go. So he is going to fire that one off right off the bat.
And I wouldn't worry about Gary Lau not having enough pressure. He's got Monastery Swiftspear in hand and Thing of the Ice on top of his library. So he's got that angle covered. He just needs
a good draw.
He just needs to make sure that his Ravenous Trap can get him enough time.
Yeah, you can see he's already got a Temur Battle Rage in his hand as well. A nice combination. Well, with really either of his creatures, depending on what his next few draw steps bring us. So,
and I think Neboisa's in one of the worst spots for Dredge to be in. He doesn't have a discard outlet. He's going to have to do something like cast Conflagrate for 0, go, next turn flash it back, since he doesn't have Cathartic Reunion, Insolent Neonate, or Faithless Looting.
he's going to just cast Conflagrate to get it in the graveyard. We've seen this play pretty often. It's much better in the yard for these players. And there it is, Thing in the Ice from Gary Lau.
The only drawback to that is that Neboisa already wants to flashback that Conflagrate. I think he's going to be happy enough killing the Thing in the Ice here.
Does he have enough cards? Is Mutagenic Growth the thing that Neboisa is going to be thinking about here?
That is going to concern him, but I don't know that he has the luxury of playing around it, especially since he has to cast Conflagrate this turn if he wants to dredge next turn anyway. And I think they're more his team now, discussing with him, maybe deciding which card to keep of all the cards in his hand.
Yeah, he's only got 5 cards in his hand anyway.
Engineered Explosives is a natural keep because every other card you want in the graveyard. if Nabois had one more card in hand, I could definitely see him conflict for 6. He did that in game 1 as a concession to mutagenic growth. But with 5 cards in hand, you're probably going to get more mileage out of explosives in hand than you will binning it for 1 damage.
Gary Lau's just going to have to say, okay, Thing in the Ice down. That one gets exiled. You've got 1 card left in your hand. He's going to pass. And it looks like Gary's going to pull the trigger on the other Ravenous Trap immediately. Kind of interesting.
That prevents any dredging next turn.
Is there anything bad that can happen, though, if you let your opponent dredge, but then Ravenous Trap before any triggers go on? I mean, Narcomoebas still stay in there. The prize amalgams are stuck in the yard. The blood gas stay.
I don't think so. That felt like a pretty aggressive Ravenous Trap. Unless you're worried that they would have maybe an instant speed way to get creatures back. That would be tough, though.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, this fight continues in a pretty interesting way because the one threat that Gary Lau has left on the battlefield is now susceptible to this engineered explosives from Stemenkov, though he won't be able to do it this turn.
Yeah, so now we are in a position where Gary really does just want to find a threat.
Yeah, because this Swift Spear is not going to last long.
So if Gary finds mutagenic growth, he can mutagenic growth Swift Spear up to a 4, bolt up to a 5, Team Ravage up to a 6, 12, 15. So not quite enough, but potentially worth doing a lot of damage.
Well, he found one. He found another Thing in the Ice.
And that's solid here. Because even though Gary doesn't have enough spells to flip Thing in the Ice yet, he's halfway there. And at this point, he's not under any pressure. The dredge deck isn't doing anything. It's not dredging, and it doesn't have any outlets. It doesn't have any traction at all.
Yeah, Gary's hand is Lightning Bolt, Teamer, Battle Rage right now. There's Life from the Loam off the top of the library there for Naboisa, but no graveyard. Also, we have to remember that if Naboisa wants to use Engineered Explosives, he's going to have to sink more mana into that as well. Looks like Naboisa is going to cast Life from the Loam with no targets just to put it in the graveyard. And you can see by his mannerisms there, he is not feeling good about the way this is going. Gary Lau is a game away from putting Australia into the top 8, and Naboisa Stemenkov is starting to feel that pressure.
So Gary's optimal draw here is like Serum Visions or Manamorphose. Any cantripping spell, any spell that draws you a card which will take a counter off the Thing in the Ice, tick down the Swift Spear. I would say Serum Visions is probably the card he's looking for most, but there's so many cards that meet that description in his deck. The Gitaxian Probe, Sleight of Hand, that Gary's in a pretty good spot.
Well, he found Serum Visions.
You know, in order to draw the best card in your deck, you have to know what it is what I found. And I think Gary had that one in mind.
Yeah, you did too. He finds an island off of it. And there's a Gitaxian Probe and even another threat with a Kiln Fiend if he wants it.
Yeah, we might be getting to the point where you just want spells. The Mentor's dead. You have Thing in the Ice. Like, one of the ways you lose could be drawing Kiln Fiend and drawing 2 land in a row. So definitely keeping the Probe unquestionable. But yeah, I like putting the Kiln Fiend on the bottom in this particular situation.
Also, it has the same converted mana cost just in case there's another explosives or something weird. All right, here we go. Monastery Swift Spear. Going to get in for a couple of points of damage. Gary's considering whether to play this land or not. He's going to play it and then pass the turn back to Stemenkov, who is feeling immense pressure here. He's finally going to get to start dredging again. He's really felt the effects of those 2 Ravenous Traps. Not an amazing dredge, though. He did hit another dredger here, though it's his worst one.
Well, at this point, Gary Lau and the Australian team, they have the top 8 in sight. Lightning Bolt, you Thing in the Ice goes to 2. Probe, you Thing in the Ice goes to 1. Team Battle Rage, flip Thing in the Ice, attack for 14. You took 3 off Lightning Bolt. It's all coming up in their favor.
Very lethal.
Lethal by 1 is like somewhat lethal.
Deeply lethal, I would say.
And
Naboisa Stemenkov going over his options, but they are few.
I have to admit, this is the part in the game that's like one of the most exciting if you're on Australia's side. Your opponents are debating what to do. You know they're dead. You know you're giving it to Gitaxian Probe just to find out.
Yes.
But you still have to do it. You still have to get to play this game. You have to make sure that you sequence everything correctly, that you remember to flip your thing in the eyes, take counters off. And if you do all those things, then you're going to win.
And now they know the way is clear. Gitaxian Probe reveals a hand that does absolutely nothing. Gary Lau can feel it. Here we go. Lightning Bolt. Target you. Remove a counter from Thing in the Ice. With that Teamer Battle Rage in hand, this entire round is in hand for Team Australia, and Gary Lau gets to be the one that puts them into the top 8. Neboisis Demenkov can only sit here.
He could kill the Swiss Sphere before it goes back to hand.
Sure. And he's going to do the right thing and make that happen. But that counter being gone and Awoken Horror on the battlefield is plenty enough to get the job done.
I throw my deck at you.
And that does it. Team Australia is into the top 8. Great run by Macedonia there, but they're going to have to settle coming up just one round short. And great sportsmanship here. You can see Macedonia congratulating the Australian team for their achievement here. And I know all of you at home in Australia are going to be screaming at your monitors, and congratulations, your team is through to the top 8. What a great achievement for them. More work to do tomorrow for Team Australia to take this the trophies back home down under, but job well done today. And they are into the top 8. Exciting stuff. Welcome back to the booth here in Rotterdam. Marshall Sutcliffe with Luis Scott Vargas. And this day was only going to end in an exciting fashion. And again, I know everybody at home in Australia is rooting for their team.
I have to give a lot of credit for Macedonia. Their handshake game really strong. Like they closed that one out really well.
I believed the handshakes too.
I did. No, they were just like incredible sports about it.
Yeah, I do too. And I do think that's really important to really note here. What a strong run for Macedonia.
Yeah.
I don't think they were at the top of anybody's list coming in.
Going home with the top 16? I mean, that's great.
Yeah, fantastic stuff from our players and from the feature match area. That, of course, is going to do it. We've got a lot of updates coming to you from Rich Hagan. But first, these messages.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the news desk here on the second evening of the World Magic Cup. We have a top 8 coming your way here in Rotterdam. They are coming your way tomorrow. It is going to be an amazing, amazing Sunday. I'm your host, Rich Hagan. I've been joined here at the desk by Gabby Sparks and Simon Gertzen. So we're just recovering, boys and girls, from what is always a very tense couple of rounds. And sometimes, Simon, the magic itself goes out of the window because you're just trying to reach this mythical finish line, in some cases that you've been spending 10, 15 years in the game trying to cross.
Yes, and this was also not only around for the top 8 of the World Magic Cup, but also for a proto qualification for a lot of these players. So everything was on the line.
Gabby, you were right there in the feature match area as the evening unfolded here. What was it like in there?
It's tense. It's really tense. And actually, that's something that a lot of people did talk about, Simon. That's completely right. A lot of people are thinking, hey, this isn't just us and our ability to try to win the Magic Cup for our country. This is a way to get a lot of players from our country to the Pro Tour.
Right. So there's practical benefits to the country as well, for sure. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to send you out to the floor because Brian David Marshall is with teams that are super excited because there's no tie breaks this time around. We know who the top 8 are, and BDM's out there with one of the teams coming back tomorrow. BDM, who are you with?
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Team Panama. I'm here with national champion Sal Alvarado. Sal, tell me about the mission for this team after Panama's finish in the World Magic Cup last year.
Well, the plan is to take the cup this year, from worst to the best this year.
Yeah, now, last year Panama was the lowest finishing team in the tournament.
At the bottom, yes.
And did people tell you that as you were coming here? Were people reminding you?
A little bit, yes. They were asking, is we're going to do the same this year, but that's not the plan this year.
Okay. Why don't you tell me a little bit, introduce us to the rest of your team here.
Of course, this is Cesar, this is Manuel, and this is Sergio. I'm very proud of my team right now. We started yesterday with only 3 members. We will have because of the weather delay and everything, but he made it on time, and we're happy to have him here today.
Yes. Now, how has the tournament gone for you? What was your path to the top 8 like? Were you guys out in front for a while?
We stumbled a little bit. We started 2-1 in limited, then we did. We lost 2 in a row in modern, and but we managed to make day 2, and today we're making a great tournament.
So one of the really special things about the World Magic Cup is, you talked about the idea that there's not maybe as many RPTQs and events to qualify you for the Pro Tour in Panama. You guys are all going to the Pro Tour.
We're very excited about that. Very, very excited. We're gonna make it great when we get there.
We're gonna see the Nacion Geek shirts everywhere.
You will. Yes.
And that's a store in Panama.
Yes, it's our sponsor.
All right. So there you go, Team Panama heading to the top 8, trying to make good on their promise to go worst last year to first this year.
That's an astonishing story, from worst to first, because 73rd, it's quite hard to be first. It's quite hard to be last at this thing too. 73 countries. If you finish 73rd, the only way is up, but boy, haven't they delivered. Great stuff. Why don't we take a look at the pools then and work our way through as we head towards the official top 8 announcement where you'll meet all of the top 8 teams. So let's take a look at Pool A for you. This was Belgium, Ukraine, Dominican Republic, and Spain. Belgium advanced by 2-0, having beaten Spain and Ukraine, and Spain were gone after their 2 losses, which meant that the Dominican Republic faced Ukraine in the shootout for the slot in the top 8, and this one went to Ukraine. Sergei Suchalski for them. We'll see if we can get a word with them. Obviously, there are some language barriers going on here around the world, but we'll see. I'm not sure what BDM's language skills are like. We'll see how he does. See if we can get Ukraine lined up for you in a bit. Gabby, did you see any of them, either Ukraine or Dominican Republic today?
No, not them.
Mm-hmm. Simon, from your point of view, Dominican Republic, they've had a great run, and although, of course, they'll be disappointed to be knocked out before Sunday, that is still a tremendous achievement, playing in the last round on day 2. Great job.
Absolutely amazing, and it's difficult to feel proud of your achievement at this exact moment. But wait a few days, wait maybe until next weekend, and you will realize what you have accomplished. If you had told anybody Dominican Republic top 16, you wouldn't have people believe you. So this is a huge achievement for a lot of the countries that we are seeing in the top 16.
Yeah, it really is. I'm just looking back from earlier in the day, and it says here, Stage B, Dominican Republic defeats Spain. Spain is eliminated. That's not the narrative we're expecting, Gabby. We have Javier Dominguez, their all-time pro points leader, and that's who the Dominican Republic beat to keep that dream alive. It really isn't easy, is it, to get to even this stage?
It definitely is not, and everybody loves a Cinderella story too. That's one of the cool things about seeing countries with smaller teams too. They have smaller pools of players that they can actually send to the World Magic Cup, and it's awesome to see them work together and succeed.
And fantastic to hear you say, when you were sort of saying, small communities with tangible benefits from a top 8, and there's the Panamanian team going, yes, we come back tomorrow. We also, all 4 of us come back in X months' time to play individually at the Pro Tour. But I can tell you that over in the feature match area, we have another team who will be coming back tomorrow. It's the defending champions. Here comes Team Italy.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Team Italy. Andrea, we talked to Panama earlier. They're trying to go worst to first. They finished last season.
Okay.
You guys finished first last season, and now you're trying to repeat, and here you are getting through to the top 8. Tell me about how this team has performed for you this weekend.
These teams have performed perfectly. We all play perfect. The matchup world is perfect. There was just nothing wrong. Like the decks were chosen perfectly. Yeah, tomorrow is gonna be easy. We're gonna win the whole thing easily.
First to first.
First to first is easy.
So you guys, ad nauseum has been pretty much untouchable for you guys.
Yeah,
Tell us how the deck is done.
We did 9-0 with ad nauseum. I even won on turn 3 one game, which is like so difficult to happen. You have to go like Pentat Prism and Simian Spirit Guide and have the combo. Like, I don't know, we just played against, me and Alessandro always played together, and we always played against like Titan Shift, Dredge, all like, good matchups, like slow combo decks, you're just faster. You also played against a couple of control deck where you have like Boseiju, Pact, you can win in instant speed. The deck is just amazing when you don't play against Infect, for example, and we play against 0 Infect in 9 rounds.
Oh, that may be part of it.
Yeah, Matteo played like 4 mirror match, stuff like this.
Tell us about there was one turn Alessandro won a pretty crazy game with the deck. Tell us how that worked out.
Alessandro's deck is Lantern Control, another degenerate deck, and it performed so well again because it was doing well against Dredge and Infect, 2 of the most played deck, and it played against those decks a lot. There was a game against Philippines where his opponent with Infect like couldn't win never because he had multiples bridge and stuff like this, and he said to his teammates, "I don't want to play this anymore, can I concede?" And his teammate was like, no, you have to play, I'm winning my game. I'm winning my game. And it was like this poor guy just got milled slowly, It was a great deck. It was a great deck also.
I've never seen anyone be that excited about the Lantern Control deck as Andrea is here right now. All right, guys, you're coming back tomorrow. You're going to try to become the first repeat champions. We talked about it in the interview we did earlier this week. You also said you like this team, so that part's played out well.
Yeah. I knew that this team would have been great for this tournament. We knew our decks were fine, were good. We were pretty lucky with the disposition of the decks because we played against 0 Infect, as I said. So yeah, just everything went perfect, and tomorrow is going to be the same.
Yeah, I know, perfect, right?
Perfect, yeah.
All right, everything's going perfect for Italy here out on the floor, Rich.
Thanks very much, BDM. 32 players, 8 teams. Let's meet them all. It's time for the top 8 announcement. Welcome back, boys and girls. Turns out not quite ready for the top 8 announcement. My guess is I'll give you the over-under on 31 players ready for the top 8 announcement. That's what generally happens at things like this. So we'll be there in just a moment. But Rich alongside Gabby and Simon, if either of you want to stand in for the missing player, I imagine that would work just fine. Who knows? But after the top 8 announcement, just to fill you in, we'll be here to walk you through the day. You'll meet our team of the day as well. We'll signpost the match of the day that was here. The coverage team got together. Well, what would we send people to if they were new to coverage? What match would we go watch this? This will give you a great sense of the drama of the event. But our top 8, just to confirm for you as we look here, we're going to have Belgium, Ukraine, Panama, Italy, Belarus, Australia, Finland, Greece. Gabby, there's a lot of big teams that have fallen by the wayside.
You know, there's teams that seem like they should have been so well set up to start. You know, Japan, amazing team, terrible start.
Right.
And it happens.
And the thing is, though, I mean, it wasn't just that they did badly. They went 0-1, 0-2, 0-3. Okay, that's limited, so arguably that all stems from maybe a terrible pool and some bad luck. But then you go into modern, they lose round 1. The first points for Japan were by being in 73rd place and having the bye in round 5. That is, you could run so many simulations of the tournament, Simon, and not have that happen again. Just astonishing.
Yes, but it also shows you that every team here comes here with the desire to win their matches. It doesn't matter if you're playing against Panama or against the USA. You really want to get as many match wins as possible. And everyone here that I saw this weekend, they were prepared. They did their work in modern, but also for Team Sealed to work together to really give their best.
Okay, cross your fingers. Apparently, it really is time for the top 8 announcement.